of sick, but, maybe that'll just give my voice a certain je ne sais quoi. So, today we are returning to Bretonnia for the Land of Chivalry from the 6th edition army book. The founding of the kingdom. In the long distant past, the lands of the Bretonnia were secured by Giles le Breton, and the kingdom of Bretonnia was formed. Each of the Bretonnia lords swore oaths of fealty to Giles, who they proclaimed as their ruler. The lords themselves were each given the title of Duke, and the traditional borders of their lands were formalized, creating the 14 dukedoms. Giles became the ruler of all Bretonnia, though he also filled the role of Duke of Bastogne. With the tragic death of Giles in the year 995 by the imperial calendar, there was much lamentation throughout the lands, as all of Bretonnia mourned. Giles' only son, Louis, who was born under mysterious circumstances, some say he was the child of the lady herself, became the Duke of Bastogne. However, the question of whether he should also become ruler of Bretonnia was much debated. Many advocated that Landuin of Mousillon should take the position, while others believed that Landuin's rival, Thirolf of Lyonesse, was the wise Marquis of Bordelot, would make a more suitable ruler. The majority of the dukes eventually agreed that Louis should take the role, but that posed another problem, for he had not drunk from the grail of the Lady of the Lake, and as had all the other dukes, and no knight, it was decreed, no matter his birth, should be able to become Lord of Bretonnia without first having the blessing of the goddess. So it was that Louis left court and set out immediately on his quest to find the lady and prove his worth before her, earning himself the title the Rash. Thus was the tradition of the questing knight born. For years, Louis the Rash traveled the length and breadth of Bretonnia, righting wrongs and doing great deeds. In his absence, Thirolf of Lyonesse acted as steward of Bretonnia, much to the chagrin of Mousillon, so it is said. Years later, Louis entered his ancestral castle, astride a mighty pure-breed charger, his golden hair shining and his eyes aglow with noble power. None could doubt the lady had blessed him, and his subjects fell to their knees before him. So it was that he was crowned as King of Bretonnia, and the golden crown of Bretonnia, a gift from the lady herself, was placed upon his brow by the Fey Enchantress, she who had borne away the fatally wounded Giles, and who was the sacred representative of the Lady of the Lake herself. All of Bretonnia rejoiced in their new monarch. His first act as king was to formalize the code of honor that his father and the companions lived by. The original vows of chivalric knighthood still exist within the halls of Bastogne, crumbling parchments decorated with elaborate script that detail the duties of the knights. All over Bretonnia, the knights embraced their vows, and many noble warriors gave up their castles to embark on the path of the questing knight. A wave of faith swept through Bretonnia, and the Lady of the Lake became the primary deity of the nobles. The dukes continued to push back evil from their borders, and Bretonnia flourished. The great port cities grew large and sprawling with renewed trade. Grail chapels were built in places of holy significance, and the Fey Enchantress guided the Bretonnians in the worship of the lady. For hundreds of years, Bretonnia continued to grow in strength and influence. When their lands were threatened, they crushed their foes, for who indeed could hope to best the might of a unified Bretonnia? Even as the last of the Grail companions passed from this world and were mourned, ever more knights succeeded in their own quest for the Grail, and the otherworldly Grail knights became a great power within the dukedoms. Many great battles were won, and sumptuous victory banquets were common. King Guillaume defeated the Orca tribe of the massive Orcal Highlands, sparing none. Lord Lamort smashed the fleets of the undead at Savage Point. The hated beasts of the forest were pushed deeper into their darkened realms, expelled from the open lands by Duke Theodramund of Artois. With Bretonnia itself strong and secure, the dukes turned their gaze beyond their traditional borders. Crusades and Wars of Errantry. In the year 470, 1448 by the imperial calendar, the southern realm of Estalia was invaded by Jafar, the hated despot of Araby. Diplomatic envoys pleaded with Bretonnia to send aid, and the king sent out his call to war. Throughout all the dukedoms this call was heard, and the countless knights pledged their lance to the cause. In his noble wisdom, King Louis the Righteous gave permission for warriors of the empire to cross into Bretonnia on their journey to Estalia, for they too had pledged their aid, despite the lack of honor that the empire had often displayed. The innumerable armies of Jafar could not stand before the might of Bretonnia, and thousands fell beneath the charge of the noble knights. Retreating back to Araby, Jafar's armies were hounded by the Bretonnians, who pursued them tirelessly. Not even the harsh desert conditions could perturb the knights, and their fervor slowly took its toll on Jafar's warriors. As the wars entered their third year, Jafar's armies began to fracture, for many of the tribes grew weary of the despot's tyranny. After frustrating months of minor skirmishes, the Bretonnians faced Jafar at the Battle of El Haik. Elemental spirits of the deep desert were summoned to fight alongside Jafar's armies, yet, despite being vastly outnumbered, a great victory was won by the Bretonnians, and the despot's forces scattered. Disliking the harsh, dry land, for it proved too vast and hostile to be properly conquered, the Bretonnians sailed back home, their cargo holds filled with exotic treasure and spoils. Meanwhile, a second great crusading army, led by Baron Tybalt, had left Bretonnia and was traveling the long road overland towards Araby. Hearing of the great victory, this force did not press on to the desert lands, though many of the knights smarted not to have shared in the glory, and a great many of them wished to enter the lands of the hated desert kings. Nevertheless, under Tybalt's leadership, they pushed into lands that they had not yet been conquered by any civilized race. Seeking glory and honor, they sought out the armies of greenskins that plagued these lands, and many great victories followed. The hardy dwarves that dwelled in the mountains around these lands rejoiced, for the Bretonnians had dealt a serious blow to their ancestral enemies, the orcs, and they bestowed much praise and honor upon the kings. Rare it was these days for the reclusive dwarves to have contact with the world outside their mountain holds, yet this victory ensured that a bond was formed between the two civilizations. These lands later became known as the Border Princes. Indeed, some knights remained there, building great castles in the following decades. Despite these grand crusades beyond Bretonnia, the dukedoms themselves were not left undefended, for there were still intermittent threats within the borders. One such threat coincided with the deadly red pox that swept through the southern dukedoms, decimating the population of peasants in the stinking slums and hovel villages. As if it were a trigger, foul creatures erupted from their hidden lairs, mutated vermin that walked like men and held rusting weapons in their clawed hands. Marching to the aid of the Duke of Paravon came the mysterious fey folk of Athel Loren, lending their otherworldly powers to the knights to destroy this threat before disappearing once more. Other perils have all been successfully defeated, including attacks from other hated minions of chaos, be they berserk Norsemen or foul forest beasts. Throughout the ages, other crusades have been waged by the proud Bretonnians, though none so great. One such crusade was led into the deep desert to the east of Araby, and a great many battles were fought against the hated undead kings of that land. Others have seen Bretonnians fighting far from home, even as far across the ocean as the jungle lands of the New World. Some of these crusades were declared as errantry wars, a tradition that derives from the old custom of the errand of knighthood. Usually young knights would be set a task by their lord, an errand that they must fulfill before they can attain full knighthood. Errands traditionally included such things as the recovery of a lost artifact, the slaying of a beast terrorizing a rural village, or successfully escorting a noble lady through dangerous lands. However, in times of war and peril, a king may declare an errantry war. At such time, a young knight-errant may earn the title of Knight of the Realm through brave deeds and daring exploits on the field of battle. When an errantry war is declared, young knights from all over Bretonnia rally to the cause, eager to earn their full knighthood. The unseasoned knights throw themselves into battle recklessly and with great enthusiasm, each trying to outdo the others and gain the attention of their betters. As such, the king may declare an errantry war when he has a need to quickly gather a large, well-motivated army. In the year 1223, 2201 by the imperial calendar, King Lewin Orcslayer amassed a grand army after declaring an errantry war, with thousands of young knights joining the ranks of the more experienced retinues of the dukes. Together, this army smashed the growing orc and goblin forces that had been amassing for many years on the borders of Bretonnia. The traditional frontiers of the dukedoms were expanded, and many greenskin strongholds, which had remained in isolated areas along the borders, were finally conquered. New castles were built along these borders, and many of the young knights errant were granted these domains along the full knightly title at the end of the Years of War. The longest errantry war ever fought was launched by King Charlemagne in 1442, 2420 by the imperial calendar. The border princes were overrun by enemies, and, despite their bitter resistance, they were being worn down. Charlemagne responded instantly to their appeal for aid, declaring his intention to rid the old world of the greenskin menace once and for all. Charlemagne was a brave and mighty warrior, but was never known for his great powers of wit or learning, for scholars knew that the greenskin hordes could never truly be eradicated. Nevertheless, countless thousands of young knights embraced Charlemagne's vision passionately, and a great army set off across the mountains. However, a great many knights perished on this arduous journey. At first, victory followed victory, and the orcs were slaughtered on the banks of Blood River. Nevertheless, as the years rolled by and more young knights traveled to the region to gain honor, Bretonnia grew weaker due to the lack of defenders within its borders. For over 60 years, the wars continued, draining Bretonnia of entire generations of knights. Eventually, under King Philip V, the errantry war was ended after a tragic defeat at Dread Pass. The Bretonnians, in their pride, do not cope well with defeat, and were it not for the wise king ending the wars, then countless more knights may well have thrown their lives away in an effort to regain the honor of their defeated brethren. There is still a fair bit more to this, but my throat's starting to hurt me, so unfortunately I'm going to have to call it here. I hope you guys enjoyed this.